why this one ingredient is a game changer for mature skin, but also why you need to be careful because many of them don't actually do much. I am, of course, talking about growth factors, and they are everywhere in skincare at the moment. But not all growth factors are born equal, so how do you choose one that's going to be effective? Well, there's two types: human growth factors and plant-derived or engineered growth factors. There are many on the market now that don't use human-derived growth factors, which is great if you want clean beauty or vegan products. But do they work as well? When you're looking at what makes growth factors really effective, there's three things to consider. Bioavailability: can it actually be recognized and used by human cells? Stability and delivery: does the formula protect the growth factor so that it stays active? And what's the mechanism of action? What I mean by that is, does the growth factor trigger proper regeneration in the cells, or is it acting like a basic moisturizer? Well, sadly, some of them are just fancy moisturizers and might be doing something but aren't doing an awful lot for the skin. And that's because human-derived growth factors are genuinely more effective. Examples include the anti-age system, which I've used and loved, this osmosis stem factor. I think there's also ones by Neocuts and AQ Skincare. They're usually harvested from human bone marrow or adipose tissue. They contain exosomes, cytokines, and multiple regenerative properties, not just EGF or epidermal growth factors. So they actually stimulate collagen and elastin production and cell repair deep within the skin. Human growth factors are best for deeper wrinkle repair, reversing damage, and even healing. So the verdict is that they are the gold standard. But what about the others? Because they are hella spendy. Well, then you've got lab engineered growth factors. These are designed to mimic human growth factors, but they don't communicate with our cells as well as human-derived growth factors do. Typically, they contain only one or two factors like EGF or FGF, rather than the full range of regenerative molecules. They work mainly on the epidermis or the upper levels of skin, not so much in the deeper layers. So they're not as good as the human growth factors, but they're better than the next one that's coming: plant-derived growth factors. These will include things like plant peptides, and they're often marketed as plant stem cells or even botanical growth factors. Of course, plants don't have human growth factors. These work more like antioxidants, kind of like a vitamin C. They're more hydrating rather than triggering genuine cell regeneration. So while they're not going to do you any harm, and they're probably not very expensive at all, they're not going to be making the changes that you might expect them to make. You can choose your growth factor depending not only on your budget, but the real changes you want to make for your skin.